Hey, it's Joey Balladonna here from Anthrax, and this is SAGAS.
Well,
Look, this is a big one.
I didn't break out and join the podcast today.
It is now time for Devil's Advocate. Same time, same place, awesome.
What's going on, everybody? This is Corbin, the Serpentine Skipwith.
Yo, this is Nicholas Emilio, singer-songwriter and former metal guitar player.
And this is the SAGAS Metal Podcast. Thank you so much for joining me, by the way.
Yeah, excited to do this, man. It's been a while. We've been talking about it, so
Yeah,
we're finally fucking here, man. Excellent.
nice. Nah, this is definitely going to be a special episode for you all today. So I want to start off where, in my opinion, everything should start off, which is the start. I want to know, what got you into music? When did you start playing music or showing interest in music?
Oh man, I have a lot of good stories, but I'll try to keep it simple here. First thing, there's a little like old VHS tape when I was like, I was like 1 year old or something, and I'm, strumming on a little toy guitar in like my parents' living room, and I probably couldn't even really speak too much at that point, right? But like just the action of like strumming like came to me kind of right away, and I really liked it. And one thing that's kind of interesting, I'm left-handed, so I play left-handed. But even then, like as a child, as an innate being, I would naturally flip the guitar over and do it left-handed way. Because then later on in my life, when I was like getting more serious and stuff, people would say, "Well, why don't you just learn right-handed and stuff?" And I'm like, this is in my soul. This is like in my DNA. I've been doing this since I was a baby. Why would I change it now? Now, to be fair, I can flip it and play a little bit, kind of upside down, like Albert King type of a thing. And actually, just the other day, I was at the studio working on something, and there's like 50 right-handed guitars, of course, and there's no left-handed guitars. And I just needed something to jam on. So I actually started trying again. Could I do it like right-handed, And I could play some basic chords, and it was actually better than I remembered. But anyway, so I started doing that really early on, and then like maybe around 8 or 9, I found an old acoustic guitar in my uncle's closet. It was really beat up. I was just messing with it. He's like, "Do you want it?" So I took that. That kind of furthered it a little bit. And then, when I was maybe 12 or so, kind of a sidebar here, but my father passed away when I was quite young, like when I was around 12-ish, 12, 13. Definitely unfortunate situation. But at that point, I think that was a catalyst for me because like, I needed something to kind of cope and get through this crazy situation I was in. A couple of my buddies were like, maybe we should try to do this music thing. Maybe we should get more serious. And, it all kind of just started happening there. So I guess what I'm telling you more about is how I got into guitar playing, even more so than music. But yeah, always been a fan, and I've always been very diverse in my tastes. Like, there was a period where, we were really into like hip hop and stuff. Even though I was still doing guitar, we went way deep into the hip hop stuff and really every style, metal, punk, jazz, blues, kind of everything, from an early age. And I'll tell you one more quick story, like when I was maybe, I don't know, around 8 years old, same thing. My parents got me like some albums for Christmas, right? And I was too young to really know a lot about what I wanted. So they got me like a bunch of stuff they liked, and some of it like seemed really lame to me. And honestly, I was a little shit, and I was like, "Why did you get me this stuff? This is old people music," and blah 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 blah. And I didn't know any better. I was like naive and immature. And then like fast forward, a lot of the records they bought me, I've now come to really, really love. Um, as a person growing up and stuff. So like one of the albums was like Bob Seger Night Moves or something, And at the time I thought this is the most lame old white dude stuff, But then like as I grew up, I started to realize there's good songwriting here. There's like, good melodies and all this stuff. So that's a long tour of like getting into music, but yeah, I don't know. Let me know if you have any follow-up questions.
No, that was perfect. So when did when did the band Icarus Landing form for you? Like, as in, when did the idea for that band start? When did the process start for you?
Uh, Man, I don't know. So I had a variety of like little bands before that, and they all had a lot of things kind of in common. And so, when like one would end for whatever reason, I would kind of take the lessons I learned, the stuff that was good, and I would kind of carry it on. And the stuff that, didn't work well or didn't inspire me anymore, I kind of discarded it. So there was actually a band that I formed in Cleveland called Diecast, Dyecast, and it was pretty heavy metal. And we won like some Battle of the Bands stuff, and we played some like sold out like club gigs in Cleveland. But the musicians that were in that band weren't really that serious. It was just like fun for them, right? Where I was really motivated to kind of go as far as I could go. So, at some point, because of their, I guess deficiencies or lack of like drive to go all the way, that group broke up. And then at the time I was producing records out of my basement studio. I like built this whole basement studio in Cleveland, Ohio, in a rural area, by the way, which is not a good place to be doing that, as you can imagine. But I was like producing other bands. So I was a teenager producing records for other teenagers. And, it was really rewarding, really fulfilling. Like I learned, hey, I can make like 30, 40 bucks an hour recording from my basement, doing something that I really love. And then I was also meeting all these cool people. And, you know, the downside though is that market is very small. In a small town, there's only so many bands and so many people that want to record and so many people that have like even money to record, right? So I pretty much produced like all the local bands and then it was like, okay, what now, right? But a couple of the people that I met in one of the bands that I recorded, like it was like a punk band and they had like these two guys had bigger aspirations. So somehow or another, we got to talking and we decided to do a project. And Icarus Landing kind of was born out of that. So the drummer and the guitarist from this other band, I think they were called like Five Times Fast or something. They were like, "Hey, our band's pretty much done. Let's do something new." And I came with just a ton of riffs. It all started with riffs, like a lot of like E minor riffs and drop D riffs and stuff. And like we just started jamming really. And then that was like 2005, which is crazy because that's a long fucking time ago. And then, but within like a couple months, we played our first show. We played the Peabody's Down Under in Cleveland, which is kind of known. And I mean, our first show, because we all were like outgoing people. We all knew a lot of people. Our first show was like wall to wall packed in there, and it's those kinds of moments where you feel like, okay, I'm on the right track, I'm doing the right thing. And it just felt really good. It was a good exchange of energy, back and forth. So then, we did that for like a decade, basically. And there's a whole bunch of other milestones in there. But I mean, we got to the point where we were playing for, a couple thousand people in Cleveland, which is kind of insane. Because, again, it's a small city, small market. We played the Odeon, like our third show ever, which is like the biggest non-arena rock place in that area. And I actually caught up with one of my buddies, the old bass player from that band. I talked to him a few days ago, and he was telling me how, because he was inexperienced, he like learned to play bass because he wanted to be in this band, and he got good enough to hold it down, right? But he basically told me the other day that he was scared shitless. He's like, man, like looking at that stage, thinking that I got to go up there and do what I got to do. Like he was very intimidated, and I knew he was a little worried about it. But like to hear him now, all these years later, say like, man, I was freaking out. That was kind of a funny anecdote. But anyways, yeah, we kind of built it up in Cleveland. We were doing good shows. We released a couple EPs. We got this management company. I think it was called HM Marketing or something. And I won't go into that whole story. Maybe we'll do a separate episode about like terrible music industry experiences. I'll leave that for another day. But like they helped us a little bit. But basically we realized we're at the end of the rope in Cleveland, Ohio. And then we did the super kind of cliche thing where we packed up the van, we drove across the whole country, and we came to LA. And that was 2008 when we landed in LA, actually. Let me stop there, man. Obviously, jump in anytime. Don't, it's not just about me, right?
I was just gonna say, I would just like to know because you do hear, you call it a cliche, but it is a story for so many bands of packing up the shit and going to a bigger place to pursue their dream of music. What is that like? Can you tell the audience just what is it like? What does that feel like? What does that take to just pack everything and just like it must be a pretty surreal decision and experience, right?
Completely. You said it very well. Well, first thing I would say is it was the right decision. Like looking back, I'm very confident it was the right decision, and I could go into why later on. But so I'll say this: it wasn't like an instant thing. It wasn't like, we woke up and said, "Let's go," right? It was something we thought about a lot. We had been thinking about it for, I don't know, a year or two, maybe. Um, and then, the 3 months leading up to it, it was a lot of like deep contemplation and planning and getting stuff together. So it sounds really spontaneous. It wasn't totally spontaneous. But another thing I will say about this whole thing is I had personally wanted to do it for a long time, like many years. Um, so it was a band dream, but it was a personal dream too. And but honestly, like looking back to criticize myself a little bit, for a while I was finding excuses why I can't do it or I shouldn't do it. And I think honestly that was fear, man. That was fucking fear. Like, what if I fail? What if I die? Whatever it is, right? So the fear was letting me justify not going. Um, and here's a funny thing. I actually had this girlfriend at the time, and she was very supportive of the California plan. And even though some of her views were flawed too, I think she was a catalyst too. Like she kind of just said, like, Nick, you've been talking about this for a long time. You're making excuses. Just go for it. Like something like that, right? Like you could write a movie about this or something. But basically that did help give me a little more push. And then a few other people too contributed to that. So yeah, a lot of planning for a few months. I will say this, the apartment that I rented the first time was in Koreatown, and I did it all online. I had never seen the place at all, and it was just like, maybe this will work out, right? That was really scary to like rent a place and put your money down and say, this is where I'm going to live for a year without seeing it was pretty scary. But the process of leaving was powerful, man. Truly, like we packed a van, we packed a whole trailer, we had a second car with more stuff in it. I had like 8 friends. Well, some were bandmates, some were friends, and also my brother was living in San Diego at that moment, so he flew back to Ohio to come with us. Packed all the stuff. It was February. It had just snowed in Ohio. There was like 4 feet of snow on the ground. Um, the whole driveway was iced and stuff. And so when we were trying to pull out of the driveway to like take this journey, like we couldn't get the van out because the ice and the weight of the trailer, it didn't work. I had to call up my friend whose dad had a tow truck, and he like pushed us out onto the road. And then we started driving, and it was like, it's like 8 a.m. on a Tuesday when this started or something. As we're driving, we're passing mounds and mounds of snow, and we're all thinking like, good riddance. Let's get the fuck out of here. Fuck this place. It was bittersweet though. But I remember like when we actually drove out, it was pretty emotional, dude. It was pretty heavy. It was like, this is the big voyage, the big journey. You know what I mean? And then we drove for 3 fucking days straight. We only stopped for gas, for, piss break, and for we took one break in Texas to go to this big steakhouse. They had a billboard. It was like 72-ounce steak. If you eat it, you get the meal for free. And I don't know if you can picture that, but it's a humongous rack of meat. And so my one buddy, the bass player, is like, I can do that, and he's kind of a gnarly dude. So we sit down to this meal. He tries to eat the steak. He ate like maybe 60% of it. He failed. He couldn't do it. But yeah, that was the one stop where we really sat down. And then I remember like rolling in on the Hollywood freeway, dude, the 101 freeway. And that was really surreal too, because we just drove all night long. Like we're super fried from driving and everything. The sun's coming out. The traffic is something I've never seen in my life. All the classic LA stuff. And there were a couple of like massive crosses up on the hills there. They're still there. So it's like really epic, dude, really cinematic. You're like, I'm fucking here. And there's big signs, Hollywood, all this stuff. And then you have to keep going past Hollywood to get to Koreatown. We get there, and I'll be honest, dude, I was a little bit shocked because I just thought it was kind of like that's the name of it, and there's going to be some restaurants and this and that, but like it's full on. It's full on. Like every sign is in full on Korean. And I just remember feeling a little worried because I'm like, I'm gonna stick out, or like I can't communicate, or like is this a bad thing? I didn't know. Now in the end, I lived there for about a year. It ended up being pretty great. I still go back there sometimes. It's really fun, really cool. I met some really nice people, so it all worked out. But that was like the next kind of shock, a little bit of a culture shock thing. And then I moved into that apartment. But anyways, dude, it's a phenomenal story. I'm so blessed and happy that like we did it and that it worked out. Of all the people who went on the journey, I was the only one that lasted though. Everyone else in their own way, at their own time, pieced out. Like the guitar player that came with me, who was the original second guitarist in Icarus Landing, this guy Joel, um, he had, I guess we were on the same page. We're gonna go break this band out. But after like a few months, he was like, I hate it here. I'm leaving. And it kind of broke my heart a little bit because he was like my partner in crime. But dude, our first show in LA, we played House of Blues on Sunset Boulevard, which was like again a nice big venue, and we had a really pretty good turnout. Like I mean, in the low hundreds maybe or something. And we'd been only in town for like a month or 2 months, something like that. So honestly, that was another one of those moments where you think, I did the right thing, I'm in the right place, and we're on our way. But one thing that's kind of interesting about that was this guitar player, a few days after the show, like I'm buzzing. I'm so fucking hyped. Like to me, this is exactly what I want. And he kind of pulls me aside and he says, man, I'm a little concerned. And I'm like, what are you concerned about? He's like, we had such a great situation, good venue, good sound, a lot of people seeing us. It's all the things we said we wanted. And he's like, but I still didn't really enjoy it like I thought I would. I'm like, okay, tell me more. Long story short, he says, I'm just not getting off on performing live anymore. And the only reason I came to LA was to do band stuff and to play shows and make records. And he's like, I think I'm just not cut out for this anymore. And the poor guy went home. And we're still friends. And
Yeah.
there's actually a much later story to it. He ended up joining me for a tour later on.
Yeah.
But that's the drive to California thing, basically.
Yeah. Well, I was just thinking as you're telling that story, it's like, it must be, because obviously when you talk about doing something and when you haven't experienced the grass is greener situation, there must be a situation where out of a group of 10, maybe only 2 or 3 of them actually deeply want that as much as they think they do. And then the other 8 or 7, it's like you haven't experienced it yet. So you don't know what it feels like. You don't know the ups and downs. You don't know what it's actually going to be like to live that life. And so yeah, I was just thinking, how many people must think they want that? And it's not a bad thing, obviously, to think to want that. That's what you think you want at the time. But then to go there and actually live that, have that be your life 24/7, it must be just for some people, it just must be a real eye opener of a situation.
That's a great observation. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
I mean, part of the whole journey though, like was to answer that question. Like there's all the what if we did this, would it be better? Would it help us with our, exposing our music to more people, whatever, right? So like I'm a firm believer that if those questions, those big life questions are lingering, you gotta like rip the band-aid off and dive in and see if it is as good as you think, or see if it's what you want, you know. And for this guy, he took the leap and he determined it wasn't what he wanted. In my case, I felt it was, and I kept going. I'm still here, you know what I mean? So and everyone's got to figure it out for themselves. Yeah.
yeah. The process of making the album, how did that go for you? Was it Was it easy? Was it a bit was there a bit of a struggle behind it?
Well, I think each one had its own story. So when I think about that first EP, that Evolution one, that was our first time really working with like a serious producer. And we did the whole pre-production thing, in my home studio where we had the rehearsal spot. And that was eye-opening and great. It refined the song structure and a bunch of other stuff. One thing I do remember is we didn't really do much with vocals during pre-production. It was all the music part. And I mean, that's fine, but like then when we got to like I didn't even have all the lyrics written for some of those songs. It was like I would be, changing it every time I played the song or, making up stuff on the fly or whatever, which was not really the best thing, but whatever. And then we go in the studio. Actually, we recorded all of it like really fast. I mean, it was like 2 weeks total. I think the drums and stuff we did at the Oberlin Conservatory of Music, which is where I went to school. So I was able to use their studio to go in and do drums. They had a really nice room and really nice gear. Did the drums. Then we went to, that company I mentioned earlier. It's like, I think it's called HM or H&M or something. But they had like an engineer on staff, a producer on staff, and kind of a facility. So we were kind of using all those services. Producer and engineer, great. Producer's name was Don DiBiase. He calls himself Studio D. And I actually might send this to him, but he's a really nice guy, really fun to work with, like a mentor and a guru, really. And we were all kids, and he was like a more experienced guy, so that really helped. And then the engineer Brandon, I actually have done projects with him even past Icarus Landing, and he's really good. So I'm just giving them a little bit of a shout out. I don't know because I love those guys. But anyways, we then did the rest of it at Brandon's studio. Went pretty fast. The mixing was a little bit slow because we were tinkering and like fucking scrutinizing every little thing. And then when we did the second Evolution one, we still had this guy Don doing pre-pro with us. I still used that studio, but like I also have some chops as an engineer and stuff. So, honestly, to try to save money, I was like, I can do a bunch of this stuff myself. And it's a good idea. It's a good spirit, but maybe not always the best idea. But basically, tracked all the drums, tracked everything, and then did some rough mixes. And then Brandon tracked my vocals, and Brandon did the final mixes. And those two things I think are great. They're both on Spotify and iTunes and all that stuff. What you can see on the second one is the diversity of songs. Like there's like alt rock songs, and then there's like really heavy screaming like metal songs. And I knew that was a risk, but like for me, that's natural to do a lot of different styles, which kind of is a good thing because you'll see later when we get to this new release, it's like it's that, right? But anyways, both of those were done basically in Cleveland. I'm proud of that stuff. I can see areas where it definitely could have been better. I think me taking on so much of the production and engineering myself was good and bad. But then we come to LA, right? And I wanted to do this new album. So we got to LA in like 2008. And I'm writing all the time, literally all the time. And basically, to jump to the chase, to answer your question, I think that album took way too long. And I think there's not really a good reason for it necessarily. I mean, I still wrote like the vast majority of all the music. But I think one thing was, again, I came from Cleveland, man. We didn't have a lot of money. We didn't have a lot of resources. So it was always about trying to like, be scrappy. And so even with that album, I recorded the drums one place, the guitars another place, and there's a whole bunch of details there I'm going to skip. But if we just went to one place, banging out those like 8, 9 songs probably wouldn't be such a big deal. But we used different producers, different studios, and that elongated the process. So I mean, it doesn't really matter. But in the end, I am a little regretful that it took so long. So we released that like January 1, 2013, along with a video, Call to You, which was pretty well received on YouTube. And then we went on tour of Europe not too long after that. So pretty exciting. Did I answer your question about the
Yeah,
the
you did.
writing and the
So you
studio
did.
stuff?
But I can't help. The question I had while you were telling the story, which I guess I should have asked in context earlier. But when you decided to travel to LA and travel to the big time, did you guys hold like part-time jobs to pay for this stuff, or did you like how did you afford to live it?
Well, I mean, short answer is, we had other, streams of income. It depends on the person.
Mm.
For myself, I was doing recording and engineering production work. I was helping various other artists and singer-songwriters, with their songs and artist development stuff. I also was doing some freelance, web projects and stuff like that. So that was like supplementary. And then, there were definitely cases where we didn't make much on a gig, but there were also some where we had worked out like some okay terms to where we would get some money back. But any money we usually got from the band, we always put back into it. Um, but yeah, it is a challenging thing. I mean, as you can already tell, like LA is one of the most expensive cities in the world. So we had to make a lot of decisions. We had to be scrappy there too, and say no to certain things, and you know, um, but there's a lot more I could say about that later on. We made it work, man. We made ends meet. I would say the one guy who left to go back home. I mean, that was part of his thing. He actually was working multiple part-time jobs because I think he wanted to have like, more money to save and this and that, which is good. But he basically was like, "Man, I'm busting my ass. I'm only doing music a small portion of the time, and even that is not really, getting it done." So,
Yeah.
it's hard. It's definitely fucking hard. And a lot of people do give up or fail or go home or whatever. Also, dude, during pandemic, I mean, you can read about this, but like a lot of people that were LA mainstays left and pieced out, went to cheaper areas, or even some people went back to move in with their families and stuff, you know what I mean? And same thing happened in all the major cities, New York, SF, etc. So those cities got like, well, not vacant by any means, right? Because they're huge, but um, there were some mass exodus as a result of that. And a lot of people that I'm friends with or collaborate with, they're not close by anymore, which is kind of a bummer.
Yeah. No, yeah, fair enough. I mean, yeah, I heard about, it affected Melbourne quite a bit as well. Like, I don't know if you heard in Australia, but we had like stage 4 lockdown. We
Yeah.
had the closest thing to martial law, I think, possible. Like,
I did read some of those stories. I actually would like to learn more and hear your perspective on that. I mean, it sounded fucking crazy to me. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if it was the right thing, the wrong thing. I don't really know, but I
well, I can
I
tell
heard
you
it was
now, the
wild.
worst it ever got, at least in my state, I can't talk for other states, but in my state, the worst it got, this was like 2 years ago, last year or 2 years ago. You couldn't leave 5 kilometers outside your house. You would get arrested. I'm not sure about arrested, but you get fined if you did. If you were caught past curfew, there was a curfew of 8 p.m. You can't leave 5 kilometers outside your house unless it's for work, and you needed a work permit.
Wow.
So if I
Well,
was,
how would they know if you're 5 km? Just only if they pulled you over and checked your ID or something, or how would they
yeah, I
even?
mean, there were so many flaws with the process. A lot of people were like, "Yeah, how are you going to check everyone and know if they're telling the truth?" So it was real fucked. But I mean, yeah, it lasted for like a year, about.
Yeah,
So
crazy.
yeah,
Yeah.
COVID hit everyone pretty hard. I think now it's all better. We don't have any restrictions anymore, but um,
Yeah.
yeah, especially. But I did hear about the music scene in various places around the world taking a hit. And of course, because you can't tour, and that's like a lot of obviously main income. So it's like without that, it can be pretty tough, I imagine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so I think we were talking about what, like the albums, how we made them and stuff, or I don't know,
Yeah.
where do you want to go next, man?
Yeah. So all right. So talking about why don't you run us through the album? So the studio album that you made in 2013, what did that feel like for you to finally get that out? Like looking back on that album, is it a fond memory for you? Is it a
Pretty fond, pretty fond. Yeah. I mean, like getting it out was huge because yeah, I already knew it was taking longer than I wanted. So anytime you get in that kind of cycle where it takes a while, frustration naturally builds. So getting it done was really a big moment, really important. Um, it was hard fought, man. It didn't come easily for a number of reasons, but um, yeah, I don't know. I was pretty pleased with most of it. The songwriting is pretty good. I do think that the overall sound isn't where we wanted it to be in the end, which it happens a lot actually. But um, I mean, I almost feel like I could remake that album today and just do such a better job sonically, and even like some of the vocal performance definitely could have been stronger. But it was a huge win. And then that off of that is how we kind of built, those European tours that we did, and we signed with this label. It was called like Gotham Records, and they were UK based. We were already planning the European tours and stuff, and then we got a tip from one of our local kind of publicist people that there was this, other PR company over there that had a label, and at the very least they could advise us on, where to play and maybe help get us some gigs and things like that. And then that evolved into, well, hey, you have a label. Why don't you, kind of help release the album? And they did. So I think that's one of the themes I've seen is like there's a lot of like stepping stones. You can't really predict some of these things. You do the best you can, and then some new opportunity arises, and you try to like maximize on that. But they did help us definitely expand the tours, and they liaised with the local people. We got to go to some really key spots in like in London and stuff. Um, but I'm kind of getting into the tour now. I mean, as far as the album's concerned, there was one funny kind of fucked up story. Like, you know, some of these songs had been born from jamming in this rehearsal room that we had, and literally 99% of everything there, was my material, or I was the genesis of it. And I don't say that to fucking boast. I mean, it's just the way it was. Because I was the most invested, like we talked about earlier. I was like really pushing as hard as I could, and um, later on, one of the guys who was part of the project at the time, they were like, you know, why didn't I get any writing credit? And I was like, because you didn't write anything, motherfucker. I mean, if you had, I would be happy to give you credit. Also, there's always band tensions. There's always like drama and bullshit, which is why it's the downside of, the band thing, because there's really high highs, but there's really low lows because of, personality clashes and stuff. But um, this particular person, really didn't participate much at all, and then later on was like, why am I not getting credit? And it's like, well, you get credit for what you did, and you didn't do anything. So that was one dramatic piece. And actually the blow up fight that we had didn't come around until we were on tour. I think we were in Spain at the time, and we all got drunk or whatever, and he got mad at me about something else. I think it had to do with some chick or something. And then as he's yelling at me and losing his mind, he says, "And why didn't you put me on the album or whatever?" And I'm like, "Oh, so this is maybe the underlying tension about all of this, right? He'd been holding on to that for months. We just played like 20 shows in a row across the continent of Europe. Never came up until this kind of dramatic moment. So that's part of it. But I'm proud of what we did with what we had. Let me say that much. And then playing those songs all over the world was super exciting.
Yeah, no, I've listened to that album, and yeah, you're right. I mean, like I enjoy it. I enjoy it a lot. So I can, so I definitely can understand why you feel proud of the album, because it is a good album. Like, yeah, I've listened to it. I have to say congratulations to you and the band. Yeah, for good work on that.
Thanks, man.
So I want to know, what was it hard for you to step out as a solo artist, to make that to make that move from band to solo? Was that a hard thing for you?
Well, as far as just like the artist part, probably not, because um I was already writing a lot of the stuff. Um each version of the Icarus Landing thing, for better and for worse, was like my baby, and I really like playing in a band for sure, but there's all this other stuff, like I said. So I'm always writing and producing stuff anyways. And so basically the main thing that changed was kind of the branding, the way you kind of label it, the way you promote it. Um, and instead of having like a band name that you can like kind of hide behind, now it's just Nicholas, this is my project, this is my name, right? So I think it's a little challenging because now more than ever, like the successes are clearly yours or the failures are clearly yours. You can't say it's, well, the band had some problems. It's like it's either I'm doing well or I'm not. So those are some unique parts about it. But yeah, I've always written stuff. So I guess it's almost just like packaging it different, changing the labeling and things. I don't know, maybe I'm trivializing it, but that's kind of how I look at it. So I released that Waiting on You song in 2015, while I was kind of trying to figure out what was going to happen next with the Icarus Landing thing. Totally different style. Actually, that's one thing that's kind of important, right? Like that is almost like a rockabilly song in a way. It started off as a slow blues song, and then we ended up kicking it up and making it kind of up tempo. But that's obviously vastly different from any of the Icarus Landing material. So I think like stylistically, that's a little challenging, and like marketing wise, that's a little challenging. But just to like do it, just to like get the music out of your soul, it's pretty normal, pretty typical.
Yeah. I can only like, yeah, as you said, having to brand yourself and put you at the front line, you're the main attraction now. You don't, like you said, in a band, I guess you can have some, you can hide yourself to an extent and, you can work around the band, but to be you, it must be, to me, it sounds like a frightening thing as an artist because obviously all the highs are on you, but also if there are any fuck ups or any lows, that's also on you. So that would be just that balance would be kind of frightening, I imagine.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think also the band thing is hard. So like having gone through all this stuff previously and seeing, like, honestly just dealing with drama and BS and stuff, like that was a good motivator to just strip it all away and just say I'm gonna, kind of go down my own path. Um, but like these new songs I'm doing, the intent is to have a band perform with me. Of course, I want to make it an exciting live show, and there still will be some of it, but I mean, I guess the difference is, well, I don't know. When you're in a band, if you're actually a member of a band, right? You feel like you own part of it, you have a stake to it, and you know, you want some returns from that. Like if you're the bass player in Icarus Landing, you want to get either some money back or some attention or, some kind of like return. In the new model, if it's just me with like some really great guys that, I love and respect, but maybe they're not in the band, they're just there to help me deliver the message. And so like, I haven't worked out all the particulars, but it's not uncommon to have like, I don't know, who's some other guy like Ed Sheeran, right?
Yeah.
Like here's the guy who writes all the stuff, he's the guy, and then he has this amazing band. And sure, he pays all those people, but if anybody's kind of like not getting it done or causing some sort of, problems, you get a new fiddle player or whatever, right? You know what I mean? Like you have a much more black and white employment engagement scenario there, right? So, um, like if you don't have a claim to the art, you can't really protest too much if you're not getting a return or you're not getting a say. And now I probably sound kind of crazy, like I just want to control everything. It's not really the point. I'm trying to minimize risk and I'm trying to minimize bullshit, to be frank. Because I just want to fucking play, man. I just want to make records and go play. I don't want to deal with all this other nonsense. But you can't really, you can't remove all of it.
Yeah, no, exactly. Moving forth from that, did you want to tell the audience a little bit about the new single you have coming out?
Yeah, so I mean, I will start a slightly different way, which is that, I've got like 20 brand new original songs that are in different states of complete. They're all like semi-produced, but we're finalizing stuff. So there's gonna be probably in Q1 next year the first brand new original single from myself. So that's top priority. But in the meantime, I recorded this cover. It's a Stone Temple Pilots song, Kitchenware and Candy Bars. Probably some of you are familiar with this, and probably some of you aren't, but whatever. So what happened was I have a friend named John Hatfield, who's been in a variety of really cool bands, great guitarist. He actually is part of Cliff Amal, this like really good Metallica cover band in LA. And he plays James in this band, and he does it really well. But anyways, he and I wanted to do a project together about a year and a half ago, and I guess this was during pandemic, so no one was going anywhere, and we were doing it all remote, like meeting up on Zoom or whatever, talking about ideas, and then I'd record a piece of something, send it to him, and vice versa. And we wanted to just do a few covers just to find our groove together. And he is the origination of this whole kitchenware and candy bars thing. He said, I've really always loved your voice. I think you'd be great singing this kitchenware and candy bar song. And then at the time, this was a surprise to me. I never saw it coming. I never saw him saying that at all. Plus, I didn't even know he was into that because to me, he was like a super metal guy. Um, but I said, okay. And then we listened to the song a few times, and like I remembered hearing it earlier on in my life. And I loved those first three STP albums like madly. Um, they were pretty game changing in their own way. And so I said, you know what, John, I'm not sure if I'm the right guy to sing this song, but I'm willing just to give it a shot, like for fun. So he did a whole instrumental version on his thing on Logic or something, sent me the files, we kicked around ideas, and then I basically started recording vocals to it, and I was getting some really cool stuff, and I was like, hey, maybe John's fucking right. Maybe this is like a good song for me particularly. I like the song with or without, but maybe this is a good song for me. And but I was doing it all like in my home studio, basically here where you see me today. And I'm lucky. I have good gear and this and that, but recording your own vocals is one of the hardest things. And I would say I still haven't mastered it at all, right? I want to improve a lot. So at some point I said, if we're really going to do this, I need someone to record my vocals for me. Called up my buddy Tom Chandler, producer here in LA, went to his place in Glendale. Um, he actually said to me, Nick, I don't like doing any fucking covers. Why are you asking me to do a cover? And I said, well, here's the situation. I want to show up for my buddy John. I want to do this well. And I think if you help me, I'll do it well. I'll do it much better. So I convinced him, and we started doing the song. And even though I was already into it and I already thought my vocal was sounding pretty good, he helped me like really lock it in because then I could just focus on the mood and the vibe and just be the artist, right? It's hard to be the engineer and the artist or the producer and the artist. Some people are great at it. I don't know that I'm one of them, but so yeah, it started to turn out better and better. And then when I started getting the mixes back, I was like, oh shit, like this is pretty phenomenal, I think. I mean, of course, again, you got to be biased. It's your own stuff. But um, so then I had a friend named Adam Raya who does production for like big shows like Dances with the Stars and all those kind of competition shows and stuff. And he had been saying he could make me a video for a while. And then by the time I had the song, I said, hey, are you willing to do a video? He said, hey, I would love to, but we just got called back I think, to do like Dancing with the Stars or something like that. Because it was kind of tapering, pandemic was slowing down a little or something like this. And he's like, I don't think I have the time, but there's a really good guy you should know, this guy, Wes. So I started talking to Wesley Alley. He ended up being the director for the video. We filmed a lot of it towards the end of last year. This again turned out better than I thought, right? So again, I'm just taking each next step. What's the next step? And each piece ended up being stronger than I thought. And so because of all that, we said, let's release it like a single. Let's release the video. Let's put a little bit of, kind of promotion around that. Um, and that's the story. But we're going to release this. I'm very excited. October 27th, video and song will be out there. And then that's just a precursor, really, for the original songs, which, start coming out in January.
Oh, I'm so excited to hear those. I'm definitely going to be one of the people, waiting on them next year. I'm going to be waiting for them. Does this mean next year there will be an official album coming out, or is this just singles?
It's a good question. It hasn't fully been decided. I think it's probably going to be single by single, and then maybe like somewhere in there we'll release the whole thing as a collection, call it an album. But we haven't really worked that out because again, I think I'm trying to do it more organic where, yeah, like we're step by step, and then, you know, the new things we learn, the new events we see will inspire us to maybe make different decisions, versus have like we have a skeleton of a plan right now, but I'm keeping it flexible, you know what I mean? Um, but yeah, the idea is to have a handful of singles released throughout the next year and then get way back into playing live, hopefully like we might even do one or two before the end of the year, but definitely in Q1 next year, getting some shows going. And if I get my wish, hopefully we'll do a couple kind of festival things more towards the summer. That would be ideal.
Do you think going forward with your solo career, do you think you'll be more experimental, more diverse in your sounds?
Yes, short answer, yes. These 20 new songs have a wide range of things. So I would say Icarus Landing was mostly metal with a few alternative songs. And then the first part of me doing solo songs was kind of like alternative rock too, modern rock with a little blues, which was cool. But this new kind of stuff is definitely like alternative rock, alternative pop. I mean, there's like almost like a country song in there, but it's like got some electronic stuff. So it's kind of out there. There's some really lo-fi indie stuff. There are a few really heavy tracks, and the question is, should they even be a part of this or not? Because I do like the diversity, but I don't want to make it so wide of a range to where it doesn't make sense anymore. So that's a thing I got to be watchful of. But yeah, it's mostly kind of electronic driven, like at this point we haven't done any live drums, it's all programmed. I think there are a few songs that would really benefit from, a real drummer getting in there, so maybe we'll do that. But I kind of think about it like, I don't know, this might sound a little bit too bold, but it's like almost like what if like a Bruce Springsteen did a modern album right now, like I wanted to have that level of depth in storytelling and kind of emotion, and the vocal is really like key, right? But then the bed or the palette under that has to be fresh, has to be pretty clean, and maybe almost like what if Post Malone and Bruce Springsteen crossed paths and made a record, which by the way, maybe they fucking will because he's doing everything, but
Yeah.
if he does, you heard it here first.
Well, I mean, I love his stuff with Ozzy. So, I mean, I'll
Yeah.
be excited for that if it actually happened.
Yeah, that'd be fucking cool, man. But yeah, so it'll be diverse, definitely, but it'll be mostly kind of modern, and there should be, some good hooks and stuff. Hopefully some catchy stuff. And I do think some of these have some pretty good, radio potential, but we'll see because radio's a beast. It's its own weird thing at this point. So,
Yeah.
hopefully it'll work out. We'll see.
All right. So I want to know, besides the stuff you've already told us, is there anything moving forward, the future of your solo career? Like, is there anything they like? So even if they're just ideas, anything that you're planning to do like in the near future with your solo stuff? Are you any tours you want to do? Any specific places you want to go with your career moving forward?
Well, if we're talking about just in the immediate future, right, we're gonna get the single and the video out. We might do a few like release party things in LA in November. We're working out some details. There may also be some live stuff there just to kind of like add to the, to the experience. I realize it's probably fairly late to be planning such things, but we still could pull that off. But then I think longer term, I would love to get back and tour Europe again with this new material, 100%. Um, and then, like I said, like I really wanted to be like more quality shows versus quantity. Like in the old days, in a metal band, a punk band, whatever, there was a lot of mentality of like we just got to play all the time, play everywhere, burn until the wheels fall off the van thing. And I've done stuff like that, and it feels kind of good at the time, but I don't think it's like sustainable. So with this new project, again, let's make it targeted. Let's make it like figure out where we can have the most impact and then really invest in that. But yeah, so that what I mean there basically is like, there's a handful of like kind of potential festival opportunities I would love to be a part of. So we're working out, can that work when and whatever. Um, but yeah, I mean, I'm really excited about this new stuff. So, I mean, best case scenario, we have good songs, we produce it well, we market it well, and then, a year from now we can talk again and hopefully, we'll have been doing all of these activities and we'll be really spreading the gospel.
Yeah, nah, I can't wait. I can't wait to see your progression. I can't wait to see your success, and I'll be one of the fans, rooting for you the whole way. So yeah, hopefully everything you want comes true for you and your career. The one last thing I wanna ask before we leave here today is a question of if you were stuck on a desert island and you could only listen to one album for the rest of your life, what would that be?
Oh man. Well, that's a zinger of a question, man. That's pretty epic. Let me think here for a second. One album. I mean, see that's almost like punishment because if I heard the one album, whatever one I pick, it will make me also think of other ones that I would want to have with me on this island, and I won't be able to. So it's almost like you're setting the person up for pain and anguish. Are you a sadist, man? But I don't know. That's so tricky. Um, I mean, I'm kind of thinking maybe like a Bob Marley album because I'm picturing myself on an island. I want it to be peaceful. I want it to be, beautiful. And like if I'm just stuck on the island, I mean, am I stuck there forever? Is that what you're saying? I'm just
Yeah.
there for the rest of my life?
Yep.
Oh my God. Well, this is a separate point. That one album, you're gonna fucking hate it, right? Too much of any good thing becomes probably a bad thing. And if I listen to let's just say it was a Bob Marley album, and I listen to that like every couple days for like 20 years, I mean, it's gonna lose its appeal. So this is a real paradox of a question, my friend. But I'm thinking Bob Marley just because like the peaceful ocean, like island vibes. Or maybe even like Red Hot Chili Peppers, Blood Sugar Sex Magic. I think that might be a good choice because they do go into various different tempos, grooves, styles. So you'd actually get a variety of stuff. And I loved that album as a kid. Still really appreciate it. But I think even after 1 year of only listening to that, I would probably be losing my mind. Yeah.
Well, after you explained it the way you just did in a paradox way, I'm probably thinking maybe an album by like Brian Eno, some like ambient,
Mhm.
because keep yourself mellow, keep yourself.
And that was the point about the Bob Marley thing, to stay mellow.
Yeah,
But yeah, maybe something more atmospheric and ambient would be good without any words. So it's just like nice sound. You don't have to be bothered by someone's ranting or whatever.
yeah,
But even then, I think I would want it to be because a CD can have a ton of tracks. I think old CDs were like maybe 100 tracks or something. Like I would want like 99 tracks of different Brian Eno with different flavors, different colors, minimal words probably, because then like I could listen to one different song every day for 100 days and then start over. That would be kind of cool.
Yeah. No, that's a perfect answer. You're the first one to ever divulge deeply into that answer. It's amazing. I'm so happy that you had that point of view.
That's a good question though.
Yeah. I think it's a perfect way to end interviews. Look, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. We had a killer of a chat, and yeah, once I do all the stuff, I'll send it to you, and yeah, go from there.
Thank you for having me. Super fun. Let's do it again sometime. And yeah, I'll keep you posted on all the developments, man. Really exciting. And good luck with your show, by the way.
Thank you. I hope you enjoyed it. And yeah, this will be uploaded once all the stuff's done, like I said. And then, yeah, I'll send it to you, and we'll see how the world reacts to this great episode.
All right.
Thank you very much for your time.
All right. Take care.
See you later.